Hi, my name is Tanya and welcome to Utility Jane. Today I'm cooking a family favourite, homemade crumb chicken with roast vegetables and a side salad. Sweet potato brownie with whipped coconut cream. But before I start on that, I'm going to start getting some staples ready for my pantry and my freezer, and I'm going to talk about how I budget in the kitchen. One way I have managed to take a lot of money off our grocery bill is making our own pizza bases. We eat mainly gluten-free, and to buy pizza bases that are gluten-free and are half decent, they're very expensive. And if you're factoring in that each week, then that does add a lot to your grocery bill. I decided that I would try making a gluten-free or a low-gluten sourdough starter so that I could make pizza bases. I have been so happy. When I first started it, I was quite anxious about it because I thought it was a difficult process. It was not at all difficult. I came up with the recipe now that I just use a small amount of spelt flour and rice flour. I have actually used an oat flour and a rice flour, and that works quite good also. Spelt flour does contain gluten. We are not celiac. We choose to eat gluten-free, so please do your homework on what is good for you. Making a gluten-free breadcrumb is as easy as using up stale bread that you have in the fridge or the pantry that is not going to be used, cubing it up and drying it out in a slow oven. You can then run it through your food processor, and if you don't have a food processor, you could use a rolling pin to break them down. Moving on to some freezer prep. Each week when I do my online shop, I keep an eye out for specials on my basic vegetables, the things I use every week. I buy up on them, chop and store them in my freezer, and leave the weekly amount in my fridge for fresh use, and use the chopped frozen vegetables for quick weeknight cooking, stretching out that special buy for future weeks. I only do this for short-term freezing. It does change the flavor a bit, but when added to soups, casseroles, or spaghetti, I don't notice it. This is a habit I do all the time, and some might say it doesn't save much, but this small amount compounded over years and used on multiple things does save money. It is the same mindset as having superannuation, a little bit compounding weekly. It's the same when I grow vegetables. We eat them in season. If there is more than we can eat, I chop and freeze. I then cook from them first and buy like this for the following months until they are back in the garden in season. Another way I save money off our weekly grocery bill is to buy online and have my groceries delivered. It not only saves money because you are consciously buying the food, maybe adding it every day during the week and then finalizing the payment, but it also saves your time of going and shopping, and it saves you traveling. I travel 20 minutes to a supermarket. It saves me that in time and petrol. So rather than racing to the supermarket in a hurry and being tempted aisle after aisle, I can consciously add to my cart during the week, shopping my bought before lists, buying up on my staples that are on special, all while monitoring the dollar amount in my cart. No I'm hungry purchases, just very mindful food shopping. It sure has saved us thousands of dollars since I started shopping this way. I use this same mindset when buying dish liquid and hand soap. I use the same two brands and I buy them direct online. Making use of discounted prices they offer, I usually buy enough for 6 months and store them at the bottom of my linen cupboard. By the time I'm getting low, they send me another online special. And if your supermarket does not offer delivery because you are too far out of town or for whatever reason, you could opt for click and collect, that when you are in town, at work, after work, picking up kids from school, that you can just swing by and pick up your groceries. The supermarkets are designed to tempt you. So as far as I am concerned, the more you can stay out of them, the lower your grocery bill will be. I shop weekly, and that way I can catch all the specials, especially those ones that are my staples that I can stack in my pantry. I find it easier to budget that way. Each week I can just be adding to my overflow pantry. I have a small house and we have limited space, but I do have an overflow pantry in a hallway cupboard that's just off my kitchen, where I stack my hand wash and all the overflow of pasta pastas and things like that I can get, sometimes saving a lot of money per pack, and just put them away, and then I don't need to buy pasta for weeks on end. Rather than you buying it when you need it, you are paying the price that it is for that week or that fortnight that you are shopping in. When you are living on a smaller budget, the way that I found that I could start adding to my overflow pantry was to just cut out a lot of the excess things that you buy. Biscuits, chips, we do have those things, but it is a conscious thing that we have to go into a supermarket and buy them. They don't just get it added to the trolley as a weekly staple. We do have treats, things that I don't make, but that is how we buy them. And when you are saving $5 and $6 per packet of biscuits, then you can buy 2 packs of pasta on special. And that is how you get ahead, by just being very conscious about the way you spend your money. Okay, let's move on to some cooking. This sweet potato brownie is one I cook often. I have pre-cooked the sweet potato, I've softened some butter, and I have my eggs cracked there. So it is 1 cup of sweet potato, a little bit of salt, 2 eggs, some butter, depending on how moist you want your cake. I've got some honey, and that depends on how sweet you want your cake or brownie. But I use some honey. I've got some vanilla, cacao powder, oat flour, and coconut sugar. Now that all depends on to your taste, and then it's all just mixed in a bowl just till it all comes together, and then added to a lined loaf tin. I have a glass loaf pan, but to whatever loaf pan, or it could be a slab cake. Now moving on, I like to get my cake or dessert in and cooking, and then that is cooking while I am preparing dinner. I'm chopping up some new potatoes. I am going to boil them, and then I am going to put them in the oven because I have that going, so I'm going to make use of that. Moving on to the crumb chicken, I have the crumb that I made earlier, and I season both the flour and the crumb just with salt and pepper and a bit of vegetable salt. I have 2 eggs there with some milk in it, and then I am just going to work my way through all the pieces of chicken all together, and I am putting them on the lined tray after. And then that just gives the chicken a chance to soak up the crumb and the crumb form properly on the chicken, and it makes it easier for when you put it in the pan and cook it. The crumb stays on better. So I just work my way through all the chicken pieces. I make them smaller pieces rather than big pieces. They cook faster, and it's easier if somebody wants a little bit or a lot. You're not wasting food. My potatoes have been cooked. I make a garlic butter sometimes in a roll like this, and I just roll it up, and then I can slice it off and put it into cooking. Sometimes I put them into silicone ice cube trays, but I have it this way. Now I've just mixed the garlic butter through it. I'm putting it in a pan. And then I'm going to add some olive oil and a little bit of salt on top and get it in the oven. Now I work my way through the chicken. It does take a bit. It is time-consuming cooking crumb chicken. I am very particular about cross-contamination, which means when I put the chicken in and turn it for the first time, I wash my tongs or use a second set of tongs to turn the chicken again or to be getting it out of the pan. Moving on, while they are cooking, I am going to make some coconut cream. It's just canned coconut cream. I add some vanilla and some maple syrup to sweeten it up. I use the stick blender. Now, if you are wanting a thicker cream, this is more like a pouring cream. If you're wanting a thicker cream, then you can add a little bit of coconut sugar, pull back on the maple syrup if you're worried about sweetness, and that thickens up the cream. So we like our chicken on the more crunchier side, so they stay in the pan a bit longer. They are not burnt. The outside does look a little darker. If you are not liking that, then you don't have to cook it as long. It does not take long for chicken to cook this way, especially being smaller pieces. So I have the broccoli that I did earlier. I have the new potatoes with the garlic butter. I've got a side salad, some of that of which I've grown. And I have the chocolate brownie, which is delicious. And I usually only make that when I can get sweet potatoes and they're in season. There is nothing fancy here, just good, healthy, filling food that's very easy to prepare. I encourage you to experiment and not get caught up with having to use a recipe.